It is time to get started with today's Go Global webinar series. Thank you for joining us as we're going to dive into international online marketing and global social media. Welcome, and let's get started. Thank you for joining us, and we've been looking at the attendee listings, and thank you for joining us from across the US, Europe, the Middle East, India, and also from Vietnam. So good evening to you over there, or good night to you. Wherever you are, welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is John Worthington. I am CEO here at IBT Online, and I have the huge pleasure of introducing today's webinar. I'm back in our office in London, where I have to say the weather is rainy. It's a typical grey day here, and I am joined today online by a number of our IBT colleagues, Susanna Hardy, Michael Hawksley, and Ines Botto, that I will introduce later. They have been working very hard in the background with other colleagues from the IBT Online team, curating all of the useful online international marketing and global social media information to get you all of that valuable stuff. A lot of practical experience there, a lot of real case studies for you today on our Go Global webinar series. Now, before we get started, I'm going to jump to do a little housekeeping. Do know that this webinar is one in our Go Global webinar series. It is to help you grow your sales, brands, and businesses globally. The Go Global webinar series has a happy history now of over 3 years, so do know that there is a rich catalog backing up of recorded webinars which are available to you on demand. They cover lots of different subjects, all about different markets, online routes to market, web, social media, country reports, all of that in www.ibt.onl/resources. So do go and check it out. They're also looking forward. There are webinars to come. We've got a range of webinar topics that we're going to be addressing over the next months, and you are very welcome to come and join us. Today's webinar will be approximately 45 minutes long, and this is the brief introduction, and then I will be handing over to Susanna, Michael, and Ines. There will be 4 polls today, so please be ready, be comfortable, but nevertheless I'd ask you to have your hands on your mics to participate in some of the polls. There will be time for questions at the end. On your screen there, at the right at the bottom, just above handouts, is questions. Please click that box and share with us your thoughts, your views, your questions, and we'll get to them at the end. There is, of course, a chat box if you wish to use that, and that will be curated as we go. At the end of the webinar, there will be a survey, so please do wait for a few seconds at the end and give us some feedback. Your feedback is very appreciated, enables us to do a better job going forward. And finally, do know that we'll be sending you this entire recording, slide deck, and information on Friday. So look at your email inboxes, and that will be arriving sometime on Friday after it has been curated by our back office. So now, wherever you are, sit back and relax, and we're going to begin to dive into today's online international marketing and global social media. On doing that, I'm going to introduce IBT Online. IBT Online is a private US and European company. IBT stands for International Business and Technologies. We've been in business since 2002, so over 15 years of helping companies with website localization, which of course includes e-commerce platforms as well as international online marketing services. We're focused, and we're all about, and that's what today's webinar is all about as well, of course, is helping companies grow their exports, grow their sales, grow their brands, and their businesses globally. So we do that in a number of ways, and today's subject matter is key, which is all about the online world and social media. So I'm now going to take this opportunity to introduce today's presenters. And we've gathered some of the IBT Online staff to do and present for you today. On the left of your screen, Susanna Hardy, Director of Client Services, Michael Hawksley, Online Business Director, Ines Botto, Online Marketing Specialist. We're very pleased to have Susanna with us today. Susanna heads up our global operations, focusing on helping companies to use the internet and has developed the Online Global range of services to help companies leverage the internet to grow their businesses globally. If Susanna sounds a little bit American, well, that might be because in many ways she is. Susanna is half German, was born in Freiburg, but has lived and was educated in the US, that is in New York, as well as over in Europe. Susanna has a deep expertise in international online business development. Now to Michael. Michael there in the middle. Michael is our online business director, a technical guru here at IBT Online. Michael manages the Online Global project management teams, who, as you can imagine, are dispersed across and around the globe. Michael has over 20 years of online experience. He looks, yes, I guess that's a fair resemblance of him with that 20 years of experience, websites and online marketing. He has developed and delivered online marketing projects in most of the major economies of the world, in most of the leading countries of the world. So he has real hands-on and real first-hand experience. Michael fell in love and decided that he wanted to go and live and work in Paris. Gosh, well, that's a good place to be, where he has spent the last 10 years. And I understand the weather's a lot better over there than in London today. Now to Inesh. Inesh, we thank Inesh for looking after our clients' digital marketing strategies. Inesh has worked on created many competitive edges in helping our clients go to market, using a range of tactics from original content to social media and user experiences to help companies grow their sales and brands in many markets. When Inesh is speaking, today I believe she'll be speaking to us in English, but like all of the IBT Online team, Inesh is truly international. She is a native Spanish speaker, Portuguese, Italian, English, and French speaker. So Inesh, please, I think today's presentation, most of it in English, please. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Susanna. Susanna, please, over to you for the table of contents. I think that's where we're going to start.
Thank you very much, John, and good day, everybody across the world to learn about online marketing and global social media. We're going to get straight into it now. Basically, how I've designed it is to talk first about the digital world, and particularly what that can mean for small and medium-sized enterprises and how they can reach out in terms of social media and online marketing. Then we're going to go deeper down into the actual social media networks. Not just the obvious sort of ones that you might know as if you're an American, like Facebook, but also some of the ones outside like WeChat in China, and then also looking at SEO and what we call website localization. Then I'm going to hand over to Ines, who's going to give us some case studies about how international marketing can be used and social media can be used for exporters in particular to grow their export sales, and also to Michael, who's really going to be focusing in on how measuring success and the analytics of it all, which are such a vital, important part of any online campaign. So without further ado, I thought I'd just start off with this little slide and picture here from an organization called Hootsuite and We Are Social, who just produced these sort of snapshots of the online world on an annualized basis. And it's worth, it's just worth looking at the numbers for a second. It's just, okay, out of a total population of 7.5 million, nearly 4 billion are internet users. So, over half of the world's population uses the internet. Now, this is quite amazing. Remember that the internet didn't even exist 15 years ago. I would also point out that this is not something that we're seeing maturing. These are not, some of the growth rates are slowing, but there's in no sense a feeling that this is the end of some curve. Overall internet penetration grew by 10% last year. And social media, global social media grew by over 20% last year. So that's, again, these are huge numbers and huge double-digit growth rates for that. I think what's also worth remembering is just how mobile people are. There are markets that you work in internationally, particularly things like China or Latin America, where it's mobile first. These are markets that first have a mobile phone, and then they might have a fixed line or a fixed computer, a PC. And I think it's worth remembering just the importance of smartphones and what that is. I mean, more than half the world's population now carries around these things. And this, there's more tech in that than used to launch man to the moon. Smartphones basically moved beyond being a phone, obviously. They now act almost like a remote control for our lives. You can check the news. You can even watch whole movies on your phone. You buy the groceries. You check your kids. You plan your holidays. You form little social groups with WhatsApp. I mean, you do so many things on this one little instrument in the phone, and that means that has really been the springboard for the social media side as well. Now, the other point I want to make on this, and this is something that we'll see again and again, is that the online world is very good news for small and medium-sized enterprises that want to export. It effectively levels the playing field. You don't have to have the deep pockets anymore. You can go online for a good budget and reach out to more people. So that's a theme that we'll see quite often in this presentation. Another major thing that I wanted to point out with the internet here is this whole blending of social and search. What I mean by this is that in the beginning, the internet was used to search for things, like even what is this, like an encyclopedia. Then it eventually got to be like, how do I do this? And with the how do I do this became little, like, YouTube channel videos of how to do this. You can do this on a video. And the whole thing sort of started blending increasingly as global social media took on, and particularly as these markets, as I said, these sort of more emerging markets came up, these mobile-first markets came up. Those are also very, very reactive social markets. And Ines has got some great case studies about that. But here, very often now in a lot of markets, the social also acts like a search. So you may well find that your target clients are looking online in forums on their social media platforms for ideas of what they should purchase. Whether that's a vague idea like, hey, anybody got any ideas for Father's Day presents, to anyone got any recommendations for the right contractors for international law? Or whatever, or all these shared likes and things become, in a sense, like a search function. And so that the social is merging with the search. Now, at the moment, there's still a little bit of a divide. You can still divide some of it. Search is still slightly above what social is, but it is fast catching up. Social is growing, as I said, at double-digit levels, and the organic reach out is shifting towards that social and blending that social into the search function. And that's something which is very, very important for a marketing strategy and for exporters who start to say, well, in fact, the best way to find me is probably through my social media in my export markets, as opposed to just purely on a website. So just pure website, you're only fighting with one hand in that case. Worth having, right from the start, a social media strategy. I wanted also to share this little slide with you. It's really about the huge rise of ad spend on these big networks. And Google and Facebook together is over $100 billion worth of ad spend. And you can see just from the growth rates on this, these are hugely double-digit, Facebook growing at sort of 60%. This was for 2015. That was the latest figures I could get, unfortunately. But in 2016, we haven't seen much of a slowdown at all. In fact, Facebook had published its figures in March showing an increase in ad spend of about 60%, so a similar level. Out of the digital platforms funded by the internet, ads dominate the top 30. That's for sure. So if you exclude, if you combine Google and Facebook, there are 5 other pure internet media owners, which is basically Baidu, Chinese, Microsoft, Yahoo, Verizon, and Twitter. Between those 7, they generated a total of about $130 billion worth of internet spend in 2016. That is equivalent to 3/4 of all internet spend. So this is a highly focused, highly concentrated market. Now I wanted to step on next to show you a map, but John, perhaps we could do a quick poll here?
Absolutely. Are you ready, please? Okay, those of you who've been sitting back relaxing, here you go. I'm launching the first poll. Please, can you share with us your view on how do you market internationally? So looking at your international markets, thinking about it, are you attending international trade shows? That's a good, solid, traditional route. Is it online and social media, i.e. today's subject? Are you actually in the world of paid advertising, or do you go through and leave it up to your distributors and reps, and are you visiting prospective international customers? Let me give you your feedback, and thank you very much. There's a lot of activity there. 53% do trade shows, 76% are saying that they're online and social media, 16% paid, 35% through distributors, 48% are going to visit their international customers. Well, it takes it all. I mean, it really does. So thank you very much indeed. All of those very valid. This information will be recorded and shared with you on Friday. Thank you. I'm closing the first poll, and if I have it, I can put one of my noises on. Hang on. How can I go there? There you go. Yes, I managed to get it. There you go. That's the end. Sorry about that. End of the first poll.
That's great. Okay, great. I want to also next to share sort of this map with you. There's a guy called Vincenzo Consenza who does these maps on an annualized basis, and they're always an amazing thing to look at as they shift over time. This one comes from January 2017 and shows you the social networks, the dominant social network in each country. And you can see all that blue is Facebook. The brown, is either vKontakte in Russia or Instagram in parts of Africa, and then the red Qzone in China. It's worth looking at some of that. The social, as I said, these numbers are growing. Social media numbers, anyway, are growing in terms of about 30% per annum at the moment. So there's still a very strong growth rate about them. What's I think interesting to note is that social media platforms just allow a company just to go to these international markets and reach these potential clients everywhere in the world. That's what I was talking about before in terms of leveling that playing field. So as a result of that, more and more companies are using social media in part of their internationalization strategy. And we identify 3 basic functions that social media platforms can give a company. The first is that it allows you to be actually found, or to know about your existence. If you want new customers in an international market to buy your products, they have to be aware of you. And social media allows a very fast reach out to people in a local market. Secondly, social media platforms allows a company to gather information. You get a lot of information from feedback and reactions, both from how business, consumers, distributors, how they all work and how they communicate. That gives you a lot of, gives you a lot of response to how your product and services are in the new market. And thirdly, it can be a direct sales channel as well as web. If you have, like, for example, a web shop where you have businesses and consumers, you can go directly to purchase things, or if you drive people back onto an e-commerce platform. Now, talking about the different social networks, the one I actually want to start with first is actually WeChat. But here you have all the big global giants and what I've called local heroes. The big global giants here, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook Messenger. Oh, look how many of them are dominated also by American ones. Basically, they're all American or Chinese right the way down until about number 15. The top 4 are all American. And here you can see as well the dominance of Facebook, which we'll talk about a bit later as well. But there you have the large ones across the world. They have slightly different functions and different ways of operating for audiences. Whether it's a Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, they have different functions and different ways of interacting with the audience, which we'll talk about as well. So I said we'd start really with WeChat, and WeChat is interesting. It's for many reasons. It's a Chinese social media application. It was developed by the Chinese internet giant called Tencent, and it was first released in 2011. So it's fundamentally a messaging app, but it's got lots of other functions. So it's got messaging, but combine that with PayPal, with a Facebook, with an Uber, with an Amazon. You know, people in China use WeChat for everything. You know, in China, for example, internet users, about 90% of internet users connect with a mobile, and about a third of the time is spent on WeChat. By the way, WeChat is quite fun to use. They have lots of little gimmicks. For example, if you wave it at a television, then the app recognizes the program, thing like that. And if you wave it at if you shake it between people, it can bounce contact details. Anyway, it's quite fun. But I think what I wanted to say about this is that WeChat came in later than some of the other apps, and took enormous market share in its core market, China. Because it had so many apps, it took up a huge amount of the internet time that people spent. And WeChat in the beginning had very strong ambitions of growth. It wanted to basically dominate, and said, you know, we're going to go head on with Facebook, with Google, with everything. And we're going to take them out, and we're going to open offices everywhere. And they have opened some offices. And that's why this map here is from January 2013. In fact, WeChat's international ambitions have rather changed, and have rather been, at first it was a disappointment, but I think they just basically changed strategy as the other big platforms, notably Facebook, took note of what WeChat was doing and said, we really have to up our game here. We really have to make sure that you can do more than just messaging on Facebook. So it's since about then that Facebook has got enormous amounts of time and investment spent in buying apps and making sure that it has a more rounded offer than just a messaging system. So it really spurred on by fear of WeChat, I think. And WeChat then said, okay, fine, I'm not going to dislodge Facebook, right? What can we do now? Basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be the gateway for companies. And I'm going to be more and more a B2B and B2C platform. So they basically started targeting businesses. For example, to encourage Western brands to promote and sell their products using the WeChat platform. They especially focused on smaller European retailers and brands. Just to give an example, foreign companies usually need a Chinese business license to operate an e-commerce business in China. And Tencent basically launched, or through WeChat, launched a program to bypass that whole license if the brands open up only on WeChat. So, you know, WeChat takes out all that difficulty that you have of going to the Chinese market in terms of an e-commerce fulfillment platform. You still have to have it in Chinese, you still have to have the search engine, you still have to have people like us to get you the website. But in terms of logistics, it really, and business licensing fees and regulations, it really, really helps. So it's, you know, particularly relevant for small and mid-sized companies to give them a direct gate into China for that. By the way, they're expanding in the US. They've opened up in Southeast Asia. They opened up in California. And I think in April this year, they opened their London office. So that's WeChat. The big mastodon of social media is obviously Facebook. And I forgot to mention, by the way, WeChat is available in 20 languages. Facebook is available in 101 languages. And this starts to get really interesting if you start using these social media platforms for your export drives going into new markets. So over 1 billion people log on to Facebook every day. I read one statistic, I'm not sure I believe it, but apparently over 50% of Americans under the age of 24 check their Facebook when they wake up every morning. Anyway, so Facebook is you know, it used to be just connecting people. Now it's very much an information platform. It's a place where a lot of brands try and get their notice and their popularity up, and they use Facebook as a core component of any social strategy. So it's now, you know, used for destination for news, trends, entertainment, whatever, and it's really being able to segment your market very well in Facebook, which gives it that power. By the way, in 2016, the big trend is video. We just actually published a blog on that. Video is very much at the center of any of the conversations about Facebook marketing at the moment. 8 billion videos were viewed on the Facebook platform every day. So that's shifted a lot of focus as well in terms of social media marketing and strategy of how people do that. And by the way, they also have a tool which I think Michael might pick up on later about analytics that allows you to measure the effectiveness of your advertising. So Facebook is really setting itself up as the core advertising platform of the future, and giving Google a good run for its money on that. Now, the other main ones that I wanted to just, you know, mention, what I want to highlight in all of these is that they're all global. All of them are really strong global players that you can use across your export strategy. All of them have multilingual capabilities. You know, YouTube is available in 76 languages, something like that. You know, so it's very important when you're thinking about your strategy to be thinking about those global players, as well as just potentially local ones. But those huge global giants that can give you that global reach all have language capability as well. John, another poll perhaps?
Absolutely. Here we go. It's the second poll, so please, everybody, are you ready? I'm going to launch it now, and off we go. Do you actively use social media to promote your business? There you go. That's the subject of today, and we're all about, is it in major markets, only a few, domestic market, thinking about it, or no? Right, I mean, I thank you for those who are clicking, and loads of information is coming in here. So the leading is yes, but only in a few export markets, or yes, only in our domestic market at 43%, and 35% is in a few export markets, 8% say yes in all, nobody is thinking about it, which is a good thing. 8% are in fact saying no. Very interesting. Look, thank you very much indeed. And I think with that, I will hand straight back to Susanna to close this poll out and continue the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Just wanted to bring up these two companies, these household names, Uber and Airbnb. And there are other companies that I could mention that I think they're generally called unicorns. These are companies that were started very recently, you know, within the last 10 years. And they were started at the very core of their business model is social media and global social media and online marketing. All of these companies and all of these unicorns really began to say, how can we use those platforms in order to gain rapid market share and to take space in this online environment of this, you know, for car sharing and for taxiing or for hotels and so on. So these are companies I think that are worth bearing in mind. Most of the you know, these are at the forefront of it, as it were. But the online marketing and global social media are now used, I think, by I know by the 100% of the top 100 companies in the world, and you know, more medium-sized companies are rapidly joining that to gain some of the benefits. And I just wanted to sort of, you know, list out some of those benefits for you in terms of the deliverables of social media that you can really point to. We mentioned already sort of market research and insight in terms of, you know, the feedback that you get from social media, as well as also direct sales, direct transactional platforms, or links directly back to your e-commerce sites. And we also mentioned sort of a brand awareness, so that just really pushing out and accelerating the brand awareness for your company in export markets. But I also wanted to list a few of the others that social media delivers and online international marketing can deliver, and that is particularly about loyalty. And I know that's part of brand awareness and brand development, but it's loyalty to a brand so that you remain front of mind when you are in an export market. And the other one is just, I guess, more transactional. Social media is a fantastic tool to leverage any kind of event or new product development or product launch. You know, if you're going to a trade show, let's say, and many of you have said that 68% said you use trade shows a lot. Using social media a few weeks before the trade show has a very direct and very tangible, very marketable and measurable way of increasing your leverage on that and return on that trade show. So those are sort of the 7 things that we think are the most immediately deliverable things for social media and marketing. Finally, I wanted really to share this slide here for you. Again, this is a sort of what we call a new paradigm to help exporters. In the past, a lot of companies would be structured in a more linear sense. The company would have a one-on-one relationship with its partners and then with its customers. And customers were not usually connected or interconnected. This is simply just not the case anymore. Customers talk between themselves. And that's when we talk about also companies trying to influence the way that talk is, and if they can't monitor it, then they can at least join in it. And that's really what we're talking about in terms of online marketing and social media. And that's the picture on the right, which you see is much more multifocal, where customers speak to other customers, they speak to partners, they speak to competitors, they speak to the company, everywhere, all over the place. And they do it on their terms. They do it when they want, how they want, and in what language and in what form they want. So it's really up to the company, you as a company, to make sure that you are interfacing with that customer in the way that that customer wants you to. So, in the past, the company would say, well, let's all go to a trade show and find some distributors and open an office and in that market. And today, you don't need to do that. You need to interact in a very different way. But we think you can use a very, very effective and cost-effective way of doing that. So just a quick word now on website localization. And that for us is the key to building a platform that would allow you to reach out to those customers. What we mean by website localization really comes down to how search engines, or is reflected on how search engines are organized. Search engines themselves are localized, and therefore your website needs to be localized. For example, if you have a .com in the US and you want to reach the Mexican market, it's not enough to stick a couple of Spanish pages onto your US website. You've got your big US website, 30 pages of product and about us, our history, and then you stick like 3 pages of Spanish on it. It's just not going to work. Google knows that that is a US website targeting a US audience and relevant to your US audience. It does not rank those couple of pages as a good tool for someone sitting in Mexico to find what they want. So now Google, as we said in the beginning, Google has about 90% market share in many, many markets, particularly in Latin America, but also in places like India and in Europe. The next big one is Baidu, which has about a 55% market share in China. The other search engines are also Chinese. Google has about a 2% market share in China. Yandex is Russia, and Naver is South Korea. Even if we just take the same search engine, even if you're just taking Google, different markets will have different results. That's obvious when you're talking about, oh, Google in Germany, well, that's in German. So yes, I have to put the word in German. But even if you're working between markets that look similar, the US and UK, Google knows that you're either sitting in one market or the other, and it will know that what you're looking for, and it will try and organize its responses to cater to you, sitting where you are. So if I'm sitting in London and I do a Google search on google.co.uk, I get a very different reply than if I get google.com. So search engine is country specific, and that means that your website and your social media and your online marketing has to be country specific in order to be relevant and picked up by search engines. So what's really important for all search engines is the high quality content, compliance, and keywords. And we'll talk a bit more about these in due course. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on website localization because we have other webinars about that. I've listed, however, the sort of 10 major features that we think are involved in a localized website. And these have to do with, they're adapted to the local language, they're optimized for the local search engine. They have the right regulatory requirements for that market. That's incredibly important for Europe, and increasingly so. It has the right domain name, and Michael will dwell on that a bit. And as I said, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Just leave you with this one thought, that a localized website is like a building. It's like I consider it like a property, rather than you as a company going out and now having to say, well, do I have to open an office in this place? I really know that I can do good business in that export market, that market out there. To really do it, I need to open an office. Well, we don't think so. We think that your website can act like an office. And if you people it with the right social media, it can be a highly effective, very cost-effective way of
generating
fantastic sales. So I'm going to pass now to Ines.
Susanna, Susanna, should I just do a quick poll? Poll number 3.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, so please, there we go. Thank you, Susanna, for that website localization page, and I think it really is going to be relevant. So here we go, launch poll number 3. How about you there, please? Do you have localized websites for your export markets? What are you doing there online? Is it all of our main export markets, only a few, thinking about it, or no? So let me give you some feedback. A big number, 50% are saying no, 28% are saying they're thinking about it, 11% say yes to a few and yes to some. So here we go with my horn back. There you go for my fun sounds. That was the close of poll number 3. Thank you for that information. That will be shared with you on Friday. Back to Susanna.
Hello everyone, this is Ines, and I'm going to be talking about how you can begin marketing your new localized website. If you've invested in a new website in a brand new market, organic traffic is really what you'll be aiming for. It's much more sustainable, and it's generally a good indicator of how well you're doing in the search engine rankings. Everyone wants to be on the first page of Google. 95% of searches only ever go through the first page. So that's the ultimate aim. However, we often advise our clients to, especially during key periods, give organic growth a little help with some paid advertising on Google. For example, if you're going to go to a local trade show, or if you're doing a product launch, it can help ensure that you get good local traffic. If you're going to set up a digital advertising campaign, the first thing you need to do is find the right keywords for your adverts. The words that your target audience will literally type into their local search engine when they're trying to find the product that you offer. Don't be tempted to just use the obvious term or a term that you've heard used in a similar language, because there can be huge differences between countries and even between industries. So the commonly used terms can vary immensely. Take a look at this example that I've got here. This is for the word train in English, and it's translated into Portuguese. You can have two direct translations, which are trem or comboio. So this is on the same search engine, same language, but two different keywords. And this is data taken from Google Adwords, so search volumes from Google. And you can see here that in Brazil, 95% of people will use the word trem, and only 5% will use comboio. In Portugal, it's the opposite. Even though it's the same language, 98% of people will say comboio, and only 2% will say trem. So if you choose the wrong keyword when marketing to these countries, Google will think that your advert is irrelevant, and it won't show it when people search. So it can really make or break your advertising campaign. Now, these discrepancies really apply to a huge variety of terms and across all industries. We have a US client that's currently started marketing their motorcycle products in the UK. It's the same language, obviously English, and in the US, motorcycle is the commonly used term. However, after doing a lot of research for them, we realized that in the UK, the only term that people really search for is motorbike. Now, this seems like a really small insight, but it will make a huge difference to the website search traffic that they'll be able to generate, whether it be paid or organic. So it's really worth looking into these things. And we actually often say to clients, there are tools that you can use to help verify that you've got the right keyword, and we often use these ourselves. Whether you're selecting keywords for advertising campaigns or keywords to grow your organic traffic on the website, Google AdWords itself is absolutely free. And when you input your keyword ideas, it will literally tell you how many people in the location that you're targeting are searching for those words on a monthly basis. So you can see what one ranks higher and go with that. So that's a very quick snapshot of Google Adverts. And I'm going to move on to how you can also begin marketing on social media. Now, in my opinion, if you're looking to expand internationally and you've invested in a brand new local website, you're really missing a huge trick if you don't invest in having a social media presence as well. Susanna has already gone over the benefits of social media marketing, and I will highlight how this can vary depending on the countries you're looking to target. Mexico is a really interesting example. We've recently seen an upsurge in clients being interested in Mexico, and it's an emerging market, and just like many other emerging markets, it's a place where social media can be really easily leveraged. As you can see on this graph, 79% of Mexicans' primary reason to use the internet is to access social media. Now, this is the opposite from most countries where most people will go on to go onto the search engines to look for information. In Mexico, social media is the absolutely dominant reason why people access the internet. Well, why is this? There are a couple of interesting reasons. Like in a lot of emerging markets, Mexican internet users seem to have skipped straight past the PC stage and gone straight to mobile devices. Now, we've all tried to use, bad websites on our phones. It's very difficult. They're often not mobile optimized. They might be ridden with bandwidth eating adverts, and they can make for quite a poor user experience. So in these markets, often social media is more dominant. As discussed earlier, the second reason is that search and social are becoming increasingly interlinked, and this is particularly true in emerging markets, such as Mexico. A lack of trust in traditional advertising and in corporate messages from brands, especially in places where the consumer protection regulations are slack, mean that buyers are much happier and more comfortable obtaining information about products and services from social media, where they can see what friends liked it or commented or what other consumers said, rather than going through the traditional channels. But social media can vary immensely depending on the market. So we're now going to move on to a case study from one of our clients that I've been working with recently. This client set up, decided to start marketing in Mexico, the United Kingdom, and in France. This is because they've got existing distributors in these markets and they want to raise awareness of the brand and demand for the products, and then help direct leads to the distributors. Now, we built the brand new websites localized to the new markets, and we set up 3 Facebook pages to help support those websites. As you can see here, this was the snapshot of the first month, so you can see the Facebook analytics. and they were all set up at the same time. They had the same number of posts. All 3 pages were optimized for the local markets. The only variable is the market they operate in, but that makes a huge difference. As you can see here, in the UK, our client was able to reach just over 21,000 people in the first month. In France, that was slightly higher with 33,500, but in Mexico, madly, they reached 266,807 people. So there's an incredible difference. There was no real difference in what we did. It was just how the market reacted. There are a few interesting reasons for this. The UK is the most mature market of the 3, where the audience is more jaded to the marketing messages and less likely to pay attention and engage because they're bombarded. There are also more brands actively marketing on social media in the UK, which makes it more difficult and more expensive to get those spaces on the audience's news feeds. Mexico, on the other hand, is really typical of an emerging market. They're highly engaged and very reactive. Mexican users are very happy to like and put comments and share the content that we put out with their friends, which really creates a snowball effect and helps disperse it further. The lack of competition of other brands paying for marketing in Mexico also makes it very easy and cheap if you're paying, or if you're same organically, you will see the same effect. Very easy to reach high numbers of people. It's also important to note that you must optimize your social media content for your target audience. Just like a website, just like what Susanna went through, although it won't be penalized or hidden in the way that a Google advert might if you're using the wrong keyword, social media content needs to resonate with the audience you're trying to connect with, especially because of the snowball effect I talked about. If it doesn't resonate, people won't share it or engage with it, and it won't go very far. Facebook will very quickly realize that it's not of interest and stifle it. Your posts really need to feel engaging while retaining a level of familiarity to make them trustworthy to the new audience. And there are a few aspects that you need to consider when doing this. First of all, we've got language. Although it seems like a very similar language, you don't want to show a post that was written for your US audience to the UK audience. The spelling will be wrong, and the style will very probably seem off. It could be overly hyperbolic, refer to unfamiliar events or people, and it will just put people off to feel like it's not targeted at them and like it's from a different country. Measurement units are also really very important. Of course, all units are important so people can understand, but currency is crucial to the success of your content. If you're marketing a great product on social media to the right audience, but then you're including the price in dollars, your foreign audience will probably be put off by that. They'll probably have some trouble converting to a price that they understand. They might presume or assume that international shipping would be too expensive, or they might just mistrust a foreign company and prefer to go with a local competitor. So make sure you take care to translate your currency as well as any other measurement units included. Lastly, and this one's slightly less straightforward, but you do need to research the audience that you're targeting. For example, in France, French brands are very often preferred to foreign brands. So if you're an American company, where in America you might use the slogan "Made in America" quite consistently, in France it's probably unwise to put "Made in America" all over your products, because it's not a message that the French will engage with or be willing to accept. So it's intelligent to try and highlight the important messages that you think will resonate with the new audience. On a last note, do be careful about how you decide whether or not your posts are working or your content's working. Different audiences definitely engage in different ways. We've noticed with our clients that the UK audience is often less willing to engage directly on Facebook, so you might see less likes and comments, but the click-through rate to the websites and clicking, and then the actual quality of the website traffic tends to be higher, so they spend more time on the pages, they might pay more attention to what you're writing, they're just less likely to publicly display approval of your posts. Whereas in markets like Mexico, we always see a lot of comments and shares, and people even post pictures of themselves and of things they're doing in the comments, so it'll be a lot more overt. Obviously you want to capitalize on that by, say, for the Mexican market, putting more information on Facebook itself, whereas the UK audience you can trust to go through to the website and see and follow up on what you've said. So obviously analyze the reactions, respond accordingly, and just stay really in touch with the audience to figure out what works and what doesn't. It's definitely a process of iterations.
Ines, that was brilliant. Look, thank you very much indeed. Lots of useful information and practical examples, which leads us to the fourth and final poll, if I may just launch that. So here you go, please, everybody. The fourth and final poll, it's which social media platforms does your business use regularly? So Ines has been talking about some examples. Susanna was talking about as well. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, WeChat, none of these. These are all ones that we love. And what are we saying? Let me give you your feedback. 50% of today's attendees, 53% of today's attendees are saying Facebook, 30% are on LinkedIn, 14% on Twitter. Nobody loves WeChat at the moment, and nobody is saying none of these. So look, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to go. There you go. That was the final poll. That was the horn for the final poll. I'm going to say as well, please, thank you for the questions that are coming in. Keep them coming in, and we'll be getting to question time very shortly. Thank you. Is that
Thank you, John.
Oh, right.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'm just actually going to see if we can ask Michael to step in for a moment.
Hi, Susanna. Hello, everybody. I'm going to just sort of reinforce some of the importance of website localization by having a quick look at domain names. Domain names are exploding in the number of variations that you can have. As you see in this top graphic here, in 1985 there used to be 6 top-level domain names, and now there are over 1,500. And just to be clear, top-level domain name is the extension, so like the .com or .fr or .net. So they're really exploding, which is making it complicated for people to know what domain name to use. My best advice is make a commercial decision that is right for you. If you're looking at the international markets, then you need to try and make sure that your international websites have the right domain name, and that could be different. It could be different from your domestic market, but in many cases it is often a variation of your main name, or your main company name, or your main product. But as part of localization, you also need to think about what language those domain names are in. We can now get domain names in Arabic or in Chinese. So if you're developing an international site, think about what those need to be. With domain names, then you can also have subdirectories and subdomain names. And if we look at 2 of the richest companies in the world, Google and Apple, then they approach their international markets differently. For example, with Google, they always use a country extension, so google.fr or google.com.mx. Apple, on the other hand, go more on the subdirectory, so they will have apple.com/fr. Both of these are very valid, and it really comes down to what you feel is right for you. There are also multiple versions of different domain names that can be used for each one of the countries. So if we just pick the UK, for example, then you could have .uk or .co.uk. They do make a difference. .co.uk is traditionally the one that would be used the most for the UK market. If in doubt, always go and see what Google is doing. So for Mexico, you could have the choice of MX or .com.mx. Google goes .com.mx. So if in doubt, follow what Google does. Susanna, can we move on to the next slide? Analytics for return on investment, I'm very passionate about. This is all about measuring how the sites or how your social media are working, what is your return on investment, and how to really improve it. The acronym SMART has been around a long time, but it is something that is as relevant now as it always has been. With the analytics, then you have to understand what you're measuring, be specific in it, be able to attribute what benefits you're getting from the different marketing you're doing, whether it is Facebook or Google Adwords or allowing it to run organically. It has to be relevant, and of course it has to be timely. And the reason timely is a key element here is that analytics allow you to adjust, improve, and make more efficient the whole process. It's often difficult to know how to calculate your return on investment in the online environment. If you have an e-commerce website, then it is a relatively straight calculation of how much your profit is divided by your investment and multiplied by 100 and gives you a percentage. But when it comes to things like sending your website visitors to your distributor websites or taking them to maybe a trade show registration page, then it becomes a lot harder to know how you measure your return on investment. Things that you can look at are comments or shares or how your social media channels are being liked. Other things to take into account are where your traffic is coming from, where your leads are, how your conversion rates are working. All these can be measured, you can give a weighting to them, and that will help understand what your analytics and your return on investments are. My final slide is really just to have a quick look at the different metrics tools that are there. And my top tip here is don't just use one set of tools, use a variety of them. They all give you a different view. Sometimes on the same information, they will give you slightly different statistics because they use different ways of measuring it. But have a combination of tools, see where the tools are telling you your site or your social media are weak, and look to see how you can make incremental improvements on that. Susanna, over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. We've rather overspoken or said too much. It's all this tried to pack so much into this one webinar. But I'm hoping we have just a little tiny moment for some time of questions. John, do we have questions?
Yeah, indeed there are a lot of questions. We are over time, but bear with us and we'll just pick out a few of the top questions which we think were very, very relevant and useful. So let me dive quickly in. Susanna, for you, so they want to start international social media. How do we start international social media? This is an American business saying we want to get on international social media. Where do we start?
I think that's a great question. I think the first one, similar to what Michael was saying there about priorities, I think you need to start out with saying, which are my priority markets? I can't do all markets at all times. My budgets are limited. So there's two things you need to do. One, choose your markets. And two, make sure that you have the platform ready. So in other words, you need to have the website, a local website, in order to serve as a platform for social media and to really act as a springboard across that market. Once those things are done, then you'll have to investigate which are the right social media platforms. And remember, as Ines was pointing out, to make sure that the social media strategy is optimized and localized as well. So a localized website, a localized social media for your target priority market. That's about as fast as I can say it, John.
Yeah, Susanna, look, thank you. And then diving quickly, Ines, this is about Facebook, so obviously let's get this to you. How much does a good Facebook ad cost? Well, there you go. A good ad cost. Good luck. Ines?
That's a very good question. I would say, first of all, as I've already mentioned, it varies immensely depending on the market you're targeting, depending on the competition. But we have run very successful adverts for as little as $5 to $10. You really need to target your adverts at the right people. So if you're targeting France, you want to make sure that you're also targeting the right interests, the right age group to really maximize the effectiveness of your $5, but it can be very cheap.
Okay, all right. Look, thank you for that, Susanna. A distributor. This is a question all about content and content for local social media. Should the local distributor be managing this, or should the original company be? Should my local distributor be in charge of content?
We love local distributors. We think they're great. They're a great asset to have. They can be incredibly helpful. They probably know a lot of the right terminology, and sometimes we're working with very tech or very high manufacturing companies. You know, it's often hard to figure out. The distributors are a great resource. However, it's not their job. They may not, know what to do on social media. So one, it's not their job. Two, you're basically handing over your brand to your distributor if you let him do all the marketing. And that can't be good for any company. If it's if this is a market that you care about in the long term, that you think this is a market where we are taking a long-term strategic decision to grow our business in and invest in, then you need to make sure that you own your brand. Do not give it to your distributor. And that means not giving the marketing ability to your distributor either. So yes, use your local distributor, but stay in charge, you stay in control of your own marketing and your own website and your own brand.
Yeah, Susanna, thank you. That does make a lot of sense. And Michael, I know you've got a thing about Google Translate, so there's a question here. But Michael, I was going to say I really like that slide you did on domains, URLs, and it sort of speaks to what we did as a company, IBT. It was only last year that we moved from our .com environment to IBT.ONL. That is our top-level domain. ONL is short for online, as an online business, IBT Online. So we made that move ourselves, and we do see the benefit and the advantage of looking carefully at those top-level domains. Sorry about that, Amble. Michael, Google Translate for social media. I know you've got a thing about Google Translate. Over to you.
I love Google Translate in many ways, but I would not use it for translating my social media. Social media needs to be optimized for the local languages and for the local markets, as Inish was saying earlier. One of my favorite examples, and this is a true example of someone we analyzed their work on. They used Google Translate to translate this tool cuts this tool cuts hard metal. They used Google Translate and it came out with, this tool is hard to cut metal with. Completely the opposite. So I would always go for a native speaker in every case.
Well, I love that example. I mean, yes, okay. Michael, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to have to cut this. This will be our last question, Susanna, to close it out. We have a Spanish website. Can we use it to reach Spanish speakers elsewhere, for example, in Latin America? What's the answer to that?
I guess that comes back to what I was saying there in the beginning about an example of making sure that you have localized websites. Your Spanish, if you want to reach Latin American target audiences, people who are sitting in Argentina, in Peru, or wherever, then you have to have websites that are optimized for those people. Your Spanish website will have some draw into Latin America, and we can point it in that direction. But for a Latin American strategy, you're better off with a direct website in those countries. And that's not a hard thing to do, to repoint. You can use a lot of what you already have, but the best results will come with a dedicated website.
Understood. Look, with that as a closing question, thank you very much indeed. I want to thank Susanna, Michael, Ines. Thank you very much indeed. I want to thank everybody who's participated today. I hope that you've enjoyed the webinar. I hope that you found it useful, and I hope that you've got lots of takeaways that'll help you grow your exports, your sales, your brands and your businesses internationally. There will be the survey that's going to come up now, so please give us 15 extra seconds of your time so that we can do a better job going forward. And don't forget that this will be with you. The recording and slide deck will arrive in your email box on Friday. So I want to thank again and just say yes, Susanna, Michael, Ines, I think you've done a great job. That's on behalf of myself and everybody who attended. And thank you all for attending, and I wish you a very profitable and enjoyable day. Thank you very much indeed from the IBT Online team.